Hello everyone, I am live from an undisclosed location. I'm not live, it's a video. Welcome back to an episode of Elliot Talks About Love. So growing up, I always avoided reality TV and content about relationships because I was a dork. I thought that it was cool to be like, man, that stuff is cheesy. I already know what I need to do in a relationship. Just be nice, just be kind and listen to your partner. Stuff like that. Now I'm in my late 20s and I love the tea. And with TikTok having all this content going viral all the time about relationships, but especially this Reese situation, this content about reality shows, I find myself being pulled more and more in the direction of maybe I should watch reality TV. So I've been following Love is Blind. Love is Blind is a Netflix dating show in which participants meet, converse, and get engaged to be married all before seeing each other physically. And you might wonder, why would someone do that? I don't know. Especially with the way that reality shows can be exploitative and chaotic, and boy is that the case with this season of this show. It seems absurd that you could find a good, healthy love in such an unhealthy, unstable, and performative environment. And then I thought to myself, aren't we all trying to find love in an unhealthy, unstable, and performative environment? That was deep. Let's talk about love under capitalism and some of the big themes of this show, but also other stuff. Okay. Dating shows seem to blur the line between two human desires, the desire to find love and the desire to be popular. Are you appearing on this Netflix dating show to get clout, or are you genuinely trying to find a partner? In the case of contestants like Jeremy or Trevor, who have been revealed online as having been in relationships prior to the show and having told their partners they were simply going on for clout, we could see apparently cut and dry cases of the former. You went on a reality show to be popular instead of genuinely caring about the contestants and the audience? How shameful. It is kind of shameful, especially when you look at the conversations that Trevor was having with Chelsea, convincing her that he was completely devoted to her while literally having just been with this other girl, telling her he's on there for clout. It's not great. And then you get cases like that of AD and Clay, who are a couple that seem to truly want a romantic connection from the show despite their issues. And here's where I think that question I posed at the beginning of this section, do you want love or clout, is kind of a misnomer. It's not really the real question. Why did I make this gesture? Because it suggests that participants are a mix of both, or that they're on some sort of spectrum between the two. I'm here to suggest that that duality is not really real. That love under capitalism is necessarily also love of a commodity, love of clout. Do you remember that scene from the recent adaptation of Little Women where Florence Pugh's character says that marriage is an economic proposition? She was telling the truth, wasn't she? Conventional ideas of gender and dating emphasize that men have to be breadwinners. You gotta be strong, you gotta go out, hunt, get the stuff, get steady income. And that's opposed to the woman who has to be this beautiful, dainty flower who does what is needed for the family to survive with full subservience and adaptation. Love is Blind contestants, and of course the show itself, subtly reinforce these ideas. Jessica infamously declares that her connection, Jimmy, who chooses Chelsea instead, will be so sorry once he sees Jessica and finds out what he's been missing on. Jimmy shows infamous visible discomfort when seeing Chelsea for the first time and feeling she'd misled him into thinking she looks like Megan Fox. Clay conflicts with his connection and eventual partner, AD, by talking about how important looks are to him. AD admits early on that she likes to fix broken men. In a recent episode, as AD and Clay meet AD's mom, Jacqueline, they declare how important their entrepreneurial endeavors are to their relationship. And Jacqueline says that they go good together because you cannot have a lazy spouse. And that's hardly even the messy stuff. Ultimately, reality TV or not, much of our understanding of what makes a good partner is our understanding of what our life will be like with them, what status we will gain with them. Will we make good money with them? Will we see ourselves as valuable next to them, having them on our arm? Will we be able to feel confident in the way that they look next to us, and vice versa? Speaking of which,
to elevate alternative sexual archetypes in the marketplace, fastest hedgehog.
The Italian scholar and teacher Silvia Federici has written extensively about what sex and gender constitute in a class society with exploitation at its base.
So she doesn't seem to have great views on trans people, so if you go into her work, keep an eye out for that.
I mean by exploitation the phenomenon with which someone takes advantage of something unfairly, usually taking advantage of someone else in a socio-political context. Federici writes of women being exploited in numerous ways, particularly for their
capacity to keep their communities together, and equally important, to defend non-commercial conceptions of security and wealth.
Under threat of anything from social ostracization to outright violence, women are stringently kept in this role and are forced to use it for the purposes of making class structure and also maintaining it. The woman is the working class man's reward for giving his soul and his body to the capitalist class. The woman is expected to fall in line, bear children, tend to the house, and of course, to tend to the lustful desires of the men. Federici writes,
"In capitalism, sex can exist, but only as a productive force at the service of procreation and the regeneration of the waged/male worker, and as a means of social appeasement and compensation for the misery of everyday existence."
And so when women are taught to make themselves pretty, to have good housekeeping skills, to become good wives and brothers, what is it that they're really being taught? I can already hear the dude bro comments, "Oh, she's not gonna fuck you for this," I can see it. I can see it coming. So, hello to them. A lot of the conversation that's being had about reality shows right now is about the seeming huge shift in beauty standards for the contestants. We're supposed to be in this age of increased diversity, accepting different looks, different people, different cultures. And yet it seems like there's a homogeneity and a rigor with which people are supposed to look the same on these shows, women especially, more than ever, as discussed in this TikTok, for example.
With the new season of Love is Blind, there's a huge conversation happening about who is the most beautiful, but nobody's talking about the elephant in the room, which is how much beauty standards have changed. This is part of the first season of The Bachelor. These women are all pretty, but they look like ordinary human beings. This is the cast of the current season of The Bachelor. It's a little hard to see because there are so many women jammed into this picture, but if you look at their faces, they are all extraordinarily beautiful. Like exceptionally beautiful. And here's a bit of a better image so you can get up close and personal. But even though reality TV was never about reality, it used to be selling you a slice of life. And the change in beauty standards is not just limited to reality TV shows. Not too long ago, movie stars were people who looked above average, but not frighteningly so, and who were portrayed as ordinary human beings in movies. Men and women who looked like regular people were once upon a time on the silver screen. The absolute darlings of the biggest rom-coms of the 90s and 2000s. And in just the last 15 years, the beauty standard has risen so precipitously, and ordinary women are expected to spend as much money and time as movie stars being beautiful. And if you don't obtain that mythical status, men who look like this and wear loafers with no socks will judge you less worthy of love. It's probably a function of late-stage capitalism combined with our overconsumption of social media, but how did we get here?
In Love is Blind, the aforementioned male contestants' seeming obsession with the appearance of their potential partners, and vice versa with the women to the men, leads them guilty to heavily sexualizing each other. Which is also confusing because the show's about not seeing the person. It's called Love is Blind. There's one case in particular that's led to a lot of controversy. I am talking, of course, about the bean dip incident. Unfortunately, this is not about a tasty condiment to accompany tortilla chips. Nope. Laura, a blonde white woman, sexualizes AD, the only black woman in the show, multiple times for her body, and at one point tells her white fiance Jeremy to straight up go over and bean dip AD, which is apparently slang for slapping someone hard in the breast. That's sexual assault. Doing that without somebody's consent is... Right. So AD also seems to say that Laura herself has done this to her in the pods, like the places where they were gathered beforehand, before dating in the show. And Laura never seems to take accountability for her actions. Does she even apologize? I don't even think she apologizes. The incident is a peak moment of the depressing pattern of the practically all-white women's cast hypersexualizing AD, a black woman. AD's existence on the show seems to be completely focused on her body, the way that she looks as a black woman with the features that are very sexualized on Black women. And with the show being set in North Kakalaki, the connections to structural racism and slavery are kind of hard to ignore. The TikTok user Abetal has examined the place of racism in this show, and in particular the association of AD with the Jezebel Black woman stereotype.
If you have respect for the fact that a body is attached to a person with feelings and thoughts and all sorts of complexities, you might clock them, be interested, and then you keep it moving. Across history, some people have always found other people to be attractive, and due to different groups or caste systems, privileges, powers, whatever, they knew whether they had more or less access to the people they found desirable. In a society built on racist and sexist philosophies, theologies, ideas, you are going to have side effects of that last for generations. It's why harassment always has a cultural component or a gendered component. I don't believe Jimmy went to the cocktail party looking to racially harass AD, but he didn't have to. What we see, however, is this open comfort with looking at her body and then discussing it in detail to other people. And then thinking, this is what AD wants to talk about with me. This is the part where I remind you, AD is not his fiance. This adorable woman is. Now, we've talked about how the Jezebel stereotype and caricature was used during enslavement and right after enslavement became illegal. But what other time period did the Jezebel caricature pop up and create this idea of what Black womanhood was? So, from the 1930s to the 1970s, a good chunk of time where almost everyone here has parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, there were these very particular household objects that were everywhere. They were images of Black women scantily clad or naked. Their breasts would be out, their butts would be out, or they would be barely covered, and it was always with a very sexual undertone. Black women and their boobs were fishing lures. They were on postcards. They were drink stirrers with their shapes cut out. They were bottle openers. They were fun posters hanging in garages and kitchens. So all across America, everyday family homes, where segregation or the effects of it are still reigning and having all this impact, you could find this image of Black women as sexually available and accessible to be looked at, consumed, whatever. I will say this is not uniquely American, and anytime we have our discussions about European art history, we find this kind of imagery.
What Black women represent in capitalist society, as firmly associated with the sexualization of Black women slaves in the West, is the cheaper, higher quality commodity that you can get on the market whenever the white woman commodity does not satisfy your need. A type of competition to allow the white woman to continuously fight to present her value. Eric Williams' seminal text, Capitalism and Slavery, posits that the enslavement of Africans and the segregated anti-Black society formed in the wake of the slave trade are founded not in this mystical, natural hatred of Black people that white people have and some natural prejudices, but instead in the economic value of their constitution as a commodity, as an underclass. Racism is good business. Williams writes,
"Here, then, is the origin of Negro slavery. The reason was economic, not racial. It had to do not with the color of the laborer, but with the cheapness of the labor. As compared with Indian and white labor, Negro slavery was eminently superior."
Interestingly enough, the text that Williams is referring to in this quote is an 1896 book by historian John Spencer Bassett called Slavery and Servitude in the Colony of North Carolina. In 2024, the state of North Carolina hosts a group of bachelors and bachelorettes, almost all of them white, for the purposes of having a dating show, in which they are supposed to look for the most valuable partner for them. The sole Black woman in the cast is constantly ogled in front of her face, and a white woman makes light of sexually assaulting her in front of her white fiancé. He later cheats on her.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
So I don't know if this is strictly a capitalism thing or strictly a reality of love as a construct in societies, civilizations, where people have to make decisions for their survival, for their economic interests. But to fall in love with someone is to fall in love with the idea of what your life will be with that person as your partner. The values that cause you to fall for them are directly correlated with the unmet needs that you have in your life. Having a healthy approach to love means acknowledging and studying those needs of yours, where they come from, and trying to address them as healthily as possible, both within and without any real or prospective relationships. Again, that's love under capitalism, but maybe it's just love in general. And maybe it's something that can be genuine and powerful, more so than lying to ourselves by saying we fall in love at first sight simply because, I don't know, there's just something about her, rather than I picture something with her. I see a vision with her that meets a need that I have, that meets some sort of insecurity or some sort of important social factor that I have in my head. Capitalism and oppression in general produces certain needs in its population. A need for relaxation, a need to feel dominant, a need to feel like something useful in the grand scheme of things, even if that useful thing is a commodity. The surface level false needs that capitalism provides. I need a partner who's at least 6 feet tall or who has titties and ass. Those need to be interrogated until you get to the root need. I need validation from society. I need to feel valid. And then figure out how you can healthily address that with good habits and sustainable situations rather than chase status symbols both inside and outside of your relationships. Recognizing your partner's true needs and your own is really difficult, but it's a crucial part of having a good relationship. True love, to me, is solidarity. True love liberates us from being exploited or oppressed to whatever degree that's possible, so that we can become more fully human, rather than a useful product, a good worker, or a successful producer. To quote Paulo Freire, because love is an act of courage, not of fear, love is a commitment to others. No matter where the oppressed are found, the act of love is commitment to their cause, the cause of liberation. And that's why I watch reality TV. Not really. I'm just messy. Thanks for watching. You should be a channel member. Here's the channel members that we have. They're great. I hope you have a great day.